Welcome back. You're watching Gravitas. Jared Kushner in the eye of the storm. President Trump's senior advisor and son-in-law has been linked to a shady Russian bank and its chief, a former agent of the Russian spy service, the FSB.
At 36, he's worth nearly $2 billion, and as son-in-law of the President of the United States, Jared Kushner ranks among the young and the powerful. But a meeting with a former Russian FSB officer now threatens to overtake him. The FSB is Russia's internal security agency, successor to the KGB of Soviet times. The FSB is believed to have played a key role in trying to influence the US election campaign. And this is where Kushner's meeting with Sergei Gorkov last December has drawn the attention of the FBI. Gorkov is no longer with the FSB. He was appointed by Vladimir Putin to head the VEB Bank in 2016. US reports describe VEB Bank as Russia's bank of spies. The reports claim it was a cover for FSB agents to operate outside the country. The US claims VEB Bank underwrote Putin's war in the Ukraine. Kushner's aides have acknowledged his meetings with Gorkov and Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak, and they've said they had nothing to hide. Kushner has volunteered to cooperate with the Senate Intelligence Committee probing Trump's Russia connections. As senior advisor to Trump, Kushner is perhaps the most powerful man in the White House, next only to his wife, Ivanka. As the mystery surrounding Trump's Russia links deepens, it was perhaps only a matter of time before Kushner was drawn in. Bureau Report, WION.
Joining us from Washington with more on this, Jonathan Landay, national security correspondent at Thomson Reuters. Good evening, Jonathan. Good to have you on the show. How much trouble is Jared Kushner in, and how much trouble could he put his father-in-law with his testimony and with this probe, whatever the FBI comes up with?
We'll just have to wait and see. It's clear that he would figure in the FBI counterintelligence operation because of the meeting he had with Mr. Gorkov in December. As you pointed out, that bank is considered by U.S. officials to be a front for the Russian intelligence service, the FSB. Beyond that, it is under U.S. sanctions that were imposed on Russian entities and people as a result of the Russian seizure of the Crimea and its support for separatists in Ukraine. And beyond that, it's been implicated in an espionage case in which one of its executives who were based in New York was sentenced to more than 30 months in jail.
A lot of information is already out in the public domain. What exactly does the FBI want to learn from Jared Kushner? What are they looking for?
Well, we have to wait and see. We do not have details of exactly what it is they're looking for, but obviously they want to know why he was talking to a bank, a Russian bank that was under sanctions, whose chairman was a trained FSB officer and had worked previously at another Russian bank, Sberbank. And let's not forget that Mr. Kushner's organization is in real estate and has been having financial problems or difficulties when it's in connection with a building that it purchased for billions of dollars in New York City.
At the risk of sounding repetitive, let me say this for the benefit of our viewers who have not followed this story very, very closely, Jonathan. Jared Kushner has been accused of being in touch with a former spy who did jail time in the US with the head of a sanctioned Russian bank. How serious is this charge, per se?
Well, no, there's no suggestion that he had contact with the FSB with the VEB bank executive who was convicted of participating in an espionage as an unregistered foreign agent in the United States. But of course, this raises serious questions. Why would he be meeting with the head of a bank that U.S. officials consider a front for the Russian intelligence service? Why? And it was under U.S. sanctions at the time. And this was after his father-in-law won the U.S. presidential election last November. Those are questions, obviously, that the FBI are interested in knowing, as well as the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is investigating Russian interference in the U.S. elections. And we should not forget that there is a House investigation, a House of Representatives Intelligence Committee investigation that's also going on.
Right, and I want to also draw your attention to the testimony of former CIA Director John Brennan to the Congress. He says right around the time that Kushner met the Russian ambassador to the U.S., the Russians were talking about actively and aggressively trying to influence the presidential election against Hillary Clinton. That's saying a lot.
Well, according to the White House, this was not a meeting, a formal meeting. This was at a reception that was held at a hotel here in Washington, at which Mr. Trump made his first foreign policy address. This was last April. So at this point, the White House, is saying that was not a formal meeting. But of course, the Russian ambassador to the United States is a person about whom the FBI is always interested in terms of their activities. So yes, this goes back then, and as Mr. Brennan pointed out when he testified before a House committee earlier this week, at that time, this is when the Russians, according to the U.S. intelligence community, were in the process of ramping up an influence campaign of fake news, of hacked emails, and propaganda and other measures that were intended to boost Mr. Trump's prospects for winning the U.S. Presidential election over those of his Democratic opponent, Hillary Clinton.
Here's another lapse. Jared Kushner met these Russian officials but did not disclose these meetings in his security clearance forms. That is something that you have to do as procedure because you have access to information of national security, to highly classified information as someone who is a close advisor of the president. Jonathan, my question to you is this. Is this being seen as an effort on the part of Jared Kushner to hide his meetings, or is this being seen as an oversight?
Well, no. I mean, I think you raise a very good point. Why did he not disclose on this form? It's called an SF-86. These contacts, you are supposed to list contacts going back 7 years, any foreign officials, as part of your security clearance procedure. I believe that he has right now a temporary security clearance. He has not been cleared for his full security clearance. I would think that this also is a subject that the FBI is quite interested in. Let's not forget also that President Trump's former national security advisor, retired General Michael Flynn, is also being looked at in terms of his failure to disclose foreign contacts as part of his security clearance process. And those contacts included taking money from a Russian state-run television network, RT, as well as from to promote the interests of the Turkish government.
Right. So Jared Kushner, Michael Flynn, as you mentioned, also Attorney General Jeff Sessions is someone who did not mention this in his security clearance form. So 3 people, plus the campaign manager of Donald Trump, Paul Manafort, advisor Carter Page. It seems that the closest members of Team Trump are being investigated for their links or in some way being linked to the Russians. Would it be fair to say then that this FBI investigation, which has been on for months, has literally reached the president's doorstep?
Yes. I mean, now our understanding is that Mr. Kushner is not a suspect, and our understanding is that there is no criminal investigation of him at this point. So we have to be very careful about how we phrase this, but certainly an advisor in the innermost circles of President Trump's advisors is now under at least scrutiny by the FBI.
Right. I'm going to request you to stay with us, Jonathan Landay. We want to tell our viewers who this man is. Who is Jared Kushner? Personable and media shy, Jared Kushner is not known to say much in public, but throughout Donald Trump's swing through the Arab world, Israel, and now Europe, he's usually been at his father-in-law's side. In fact, he's been tasked with resolving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, a tough call for any statesman, much less for somebody whose only claim to fame is a background in real estate. But those who know Jared Kushner say that he's tough, unflappable, and will strike back hard if provoked. In the White House, he, besides Ivanka Trump, are the power centers. It was he who cut to size Steve Bannon and had FBI Director Comey sacked. In effect, he declared war on the Justice Department and the FBI. Jared Kushner has degrees from Harvard and New York University, but the word is that he got into these prestigious institutions backed by the real estate clout of his millionaire father. His father, remember, was also jailed in 2005 for illegal election funding. His critics say that he bought the New York Observer to push his commercial agenda and settle personal scores. So while we know all of this in terms of background now, Jonathan, how is Jared Kushner seen by those who follow the White House?
Well, he's seen as one of President Trump's closest advisors, closest confidants. Of course, his closest confidant is his daughter Ivanka. But given that she's married to Jared, there's the thought is that there's very little that he doesn't know or that she knows. I believe they returned from the foreign trip that President Trump is still on last night to Washington. And this comes amid reports that the White House is setting up a quote unquote war room that will deal with this absolute flood of disclosures that have been coming over the recent weeks about alleged contacts between Trump campaign associates and aides and Russian officials.
And it's saying a lot when we say that he's been tasked with resolving a conflict that presidents in the past have failed to, given the fact that he remains embroiled in something as serious as the Trump campaign's links to Russia.
That's true. I mean, he has absolutely no diplomatic experience whatsoever. We also have to remember that he's Jewish, and that might be a problem for him when it comes to dealing with the Palestinians. He's a total diplomatic neophyte, and we're just going to have to wait and see where this goes. But But we also have to remember that given the deepening scandal that's taking place here in Washington, not just the talks with the Palestinians, but just about anything on the Trump administration's agenda, be it healthcare reform, the travel ban, tax reform, is all grounding to a halt.
And here's another story that sheds more light into who Jared Kushner really is. Reputed digital journalist Harleen Kalon, who worked for him at The Observer in 2010 and later parted ways after a dispute over payment, had this to say about him. We're talking about a guy who isn't particularly bright or hardworking, doesn't actually know anything, has bought his way into everything ever with money he got from his criminal father, who is deeply insecure and obsessed with fame. You don't buy the NYO, marry Ivanka Trump, or constantly talk about the phone calls you get from celebrities if it's in your nature to shun the spotlight. Jonathan, we could be talking about Donald Trump.
It's possible. I can't shed any light on those observations of Mr. Kushner's character. I don't cover the White House per se. I've been focused mainly on investigating the Trump-Russia allegations, but this woman who wrote these words knows him intimately, or at least through their business connections, and there's nothing I can do to question her observations.
Understandably. The takeaway, I guess, for our viewers is this: no matter how much trouble he may be in right now, it isn't a good idea to be on the wrong side of Jared Kushner, not yet. Thanks very much, Jonathan Landay, for joining us from Washington with your insights. We're taking a break. Still ahead on Gravitas: has India overtaken China in population growth? And if yes, why is Beijing rejecting the numbers?